welcome back, Coast to Coast NHL podcast, episode 33. We're here. I'm joined again by my favorite co-host and only co-host, Mr. Maverick Tori. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
It's February 4th, and a bunch of COVID news, bunch of other things going on around the NHL. It's been a pretty busy couple days with the NHL, so it's pretty great. We're gonna have quite a few things we can touch base on here. I think, as per most sports, the biggest news remains to be COVID. Unfortunately, it's been causing a little bit of havoc around the NHL these past, really
just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. Fantasy-wise, regular NHL-wise, you can't really avoid it. Sports-wise, worldwide,
yeah, pretty much. If you're a sports fan, it's even more so a topic I feel right now in a lot of households or between people. Like, if you're into sports, it's almost even that much more in your face, which it's always fun. But I mean, speaking of which, it's interesting to see what's been going on specifically this week with Buffalo Sabres and some of the changes the NHL is doing, and I feel like a lot of it is to do with the fact that Buffalo made some complaints and voiced some concerns about things that they didn't feel were right or up to code or to meet the standards they felt they should be meeting as a visitor team coming into somewhere, making sure them and their staff and their people are safe. And it's interesting to see now. The idea basically is they're going to take the glass away from behind the bench. And that led me to think and want to ask you, what do you think of the long-term potential effects of changing behind the bench? Like, in terms of, could you maybe make that a little spot that maybe you take a couple rows back off and you turn that into more space for the coach, or maybe some space for a trainer to help, with a skate, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Immediately, the first thing that
what I mean?
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit here. Oh, you're okay. We're good.
I'm back.
Yeah,
okay.
You're good. Immediately, what comes to mind for me is, first off, the delay of game rule, because that's one of those spots where it happens more often, like somewhat often, if when they're trying to clear out, goes over there. And from what I understand, the rule's still going to be in play, and they're going to act as if the glass was there, and they're going to leave it to the referee's discretion whether it would have cleared the glass, which that part worries me a little bit. I'm sure there's going to be
regular season, who cares, but playoff games, that's scary.
I'm assuming that the refs are going to be more likely than not, if it's close, just to drop the puck and forget about it. So I think it's only if it's going to be egregious will it really be called at that part in the ice. What to address, like, your...
I think that...
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah.
I was just going to finish. To address your part of it, I think that something has to be done in terms of, because one of the issues here in the NHL is that they're crammed in on this little bench. Not like even the players, but I don't know how they can do it other than potentially moving one bench to one side and one bench to the other side. It's the only thing
that's true
that I could see doing it. Otherwise, if you try to make the benches super long, then you could like kind of mess around where it'd be pretty equal, and it'd get away from the home team getting for like the deeper change or whatever that plays into effect now. It'd be complete equal. Have a double-sized bench on either side. I think that could be something that we see in the future.
That's a good point, and it's interesting because a lot of junior rinks most rinks were originally built exactly that way, where benches were on the both sides, like same sides. But in junior specifically, they started moving them across the ice to try and cut down on the shenanigans, because if they're right beside each other, what's one piece of plexiglass going to do?
Yep.
If people want to kill each other? So, like, if they're on the other side of the ice, at least they have to skate across the entire ice if they're going to do anything, which allows a little bit of time for people to try to do something. Like,
or maybe they have some
happening.
time to second guess their actions as they're going over.
Or their teammates say, "Hey, bud, what are you doing? Like, stop," and their teammates stop them or whatever. But I mean, if they're doing that at that point, they've already kind of snapped, right? So I mean, whatever happens, but a lot of them have done that in junior. So it's really interesting you say that, because I think that's a good point, and I think that could be something we definitely see at least at the NHL level, or maybe
Yeah,
NHL and pro level or
one
whatever.
thing that would have to be looked into is the penalty box, would obviously, because it's on the opposite side usually. So how they would do that, who knows? It's just the only thing.
What about something wacky where you put the penalty box behind the net?
That'd be just, well, that'd just be wacky. The
It would be interesting
the
though, because
opposite
imagine if,
side, or on,
because you exactly. So if you're swapping back and forth, right, and you have the
yeah,
wrong change, and you're coming out of the far end, could be an interesting situation.
yeah, no, yeah, that just, to me, that's too gimmicky for,
It is, and you got to think. Imagine there's a power play, and the
yeah,
penalty box is opening behind the net, and the puck just comes
yeah.
flying in at full speed. Like, yeah, there's definitely silly
You might as
implications
well
about
at
it. But
that
just
point
so
put a cage above the ice and just throw them in the cage, and then they like come out like the San Jose Sharks mascot afterwards. And, like but
that's
yeah, let's.
hilarious.
I just want to like read what you sent me here with all the changes that they're implementing. Specifically, I think today
Yeah,
it came out, right? So the glass is removed
today,
behind the
this morning.
benches, which we just talked about. This is supposed to be to deploy portable air cleaners and like help the circulation of air. And kind of like what we talked about, they're crammed in there. And the other sports like NFL, they have their wide open benches, a lot more
The whole
space.
sideline.
Whole
Yeah.
sideline, exactly. Players and coaches no longer permitted to arrive to the arena until 1 hour and 45 minutes before puck drop. All the meetings, whether game day or not, should be done virtually. So this one, very interesting to me, the fact that these meetings weren't being done virtually, if that is really the case to begin with. Um, what do you think about this one?
Um,
Makes sense.
yeah, it just makes sense. I don't know why they weren't doing it from the start. And I feel like, well, one thing they mentioned is just like, obviously, if you need to go have work done, like you need need the trainer to help you. If it stretches, they want you to be doing that virtually.
Hmm.
If it's something where they actually need to help manipulate you or help stretch you out in some way or heal you or whatever, then that's okay. But
Hmm.
then you have to obviously follow the protocols.
Totally,
So
totally.
makes
Um,
sense.
Teams are being asked to utilize or create additional locker room space for themselves and their opponents, with the league looking at least 6 feet apart. Again, this is just seems like common sense. Like we've been living in this COVID world for the past year. Workplaces outside the NHL have been implementing all the sorts of different things like this, so it makes sense. It has me wonder because you think that this comes from the Buffalo, New Jersey incident.
I do. Yeah.
Um,
I do. Or at least I feel like at least they were discussing it
mhm,
and this was the tipping point. At least that. But I think it had a lot to do with them being like, "Hey, we can't at least have this news come out and not do anything." So, whether we were discussing it or whether these are decisions they came up in the last 72 hours or something, I obviously have no idea. I couldn't even guess.
yeah,
But yeah, I think
yeah. It's
that they
gonna
just kind
be
of said, "Well, we
interesting
have to do this."
because the over the past week since our last podcast, I guess there's been 3 COVID outbreaks amongst teams. Minnesota
Hmm.
being one, who played Colorado before this outbreak, shut them down. New Jersey, who is over the weekend, who then played Buffalo, like, and then Buffalo's getting an outbreak on themselves. So that's kind of where all what we're talking about here. It'll be
Hmm.
interesting because Colorado played Minnesota. If anything's gonna come from that,
Yeah.
as well, with them going into the
And
weekend.
the thing that I had read about Buffalo is that they had voiced some concerns about some of the personnel had raised some concerns about basically facing New Jersey. I don't remember if they went into New Jersey or if they were just facing New Jersey and they were the visitor team and they weren't following some of the protocols that the Sabres had hoped they would have, or
Mhm.
they're being sloppy with that matter. I don't know that much detail, but according to one of the local radio stations, they had indicated that there was some potential concerns that were raised. To who and to how serious, obviously, you can't really know. But I just find it very odd. And, the timing makes a lot of sense that what's happened. And if I'm the Sabres and I did voice concerns and all of a sudden, you know, some of my players and my coach is unavailable, I have concerns about that, especially because my coach is my coach. It's one thing if I miss a player or whatever, and it's even worse if I miss a star for a couple games. But like if I miss my coach for 10 games because they either have COVID or they're in COVID protocol, like it seems like, or it sounds like, I think they confirmed Kruger is in.
Yeah,
Um,
he's positive. Yep.
Sabres might have to play 10 games without their head coach. Like maybe not as many, but four to who knows how long he could be out, right?
Yeah.
They could have at least 4, 5, 6, 7 games without their head coach, which I mean, everyone has these potential, but like after they voice these concerns, it's just it seems a little concerning that on top of that, like some of the stuff we said just makes sense. Why haven't they been doing this, and are they really protecting their players? And is this going to be something that the players use later as a bargaining thing? Try to
Hmm.
say like, you didn't really protect us, so now we want this in order to protect us
Yeah,
moving forward.
when they voice concerns, they feel like they're not being heard, and now they kind of have that ammunition proof if what's being alleged here is true. So you're right.
Mm.
It's definitely gonna be a bargaining chip in the future, and I don't. It's not gonna be the last we hear about such a
Oh
thing.
no. And sorry, I just wanted to jump back quickly. One thing I
Yeah.
forgot to say, just when you're talking about the concern, your original concern about the puck over the net, or sorry, the puck over the glass penalty. I almost wonder if the NHL, instead of having discretion, just change it to the blue line. So like if you're in your defensive zone and the puck goes over the glass before outside of the blue line, and it's a penalty. Because a lot of the part was just because there's a couple defensive teams and coaches who trained, if you're in the penalty kill and you need a whistle, just shoot the puck in the crowd.
Yep.
And honestly, that used to be a strategy my dad used to tell with our team. Like, if you're in trouble, like just flip the puck out of the area. You can get a change. There's no penalty. Don't do it all the time, and obviously don't wire it at your mom. But like, he would be like, just if no one's sitting there or whatever, just flip it over the glass, come to the bench, it's a change. So like a lot of
Yeah.
it was like, okay, if we're gonna do that and we have fans in the stand, we can't assume the liability of somebody turning around and shooting a 80-mile-an-hour wrist shot up into the crowd, paid and hit a baby or hit somebody that's not paying attention or something like that, right? Like you just
Must
can't have
protect the
that. So it's
babies.
interesting. Exactly. So I mean, if they have that rounded glass now right at the blue lines, so just like if it goes over that part of the glass, it's a penalty.
Yeah.
It's easy to tell because you can take the camera from behind the net and you can look out. Did it go over outside the blue line or did it go over inside the blue line? And then that way, like if you're gonna fire it into the bench, you shouldn't do that. But or you just add the bench as the penalty. If you flick the puck over the net or over the boards anywhere, it's a penalty. You do one or those two. I don't like that second rule
No, the bench
because
is hard. That
it's
happens a
just
lot.
too low. Things
Yeah.
can happen, right? So
Yeah.
like I don't love that. So I would prefer something else. But I hate when the discretion is is left up to the referees because there's already been multiple times now where the referees or the NHL's come out the next day and been like, we were wrong. And it's
Hmm.
like, okay, so what now? What if that was the game 7 of somebody going into the cup final and you're like, oh well, we were wrong. So you're gonna tell a whole fan base, oh well, they're wrong, but we're not gonna do anything about it. Okay, well that's ticky tack. That loses a lot of credibility in your league, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Definitely.
that they have to be mindful of that too. But we'll
For
see.
sure. Yeah. And I think I'm going to just transition to this Marco Rossi thing that I brought up.
Hmm.
With all these COVID cases in the NHL, I think we're gonna start to hear a lot more stories like the one that Marco Rossi had, where this young man, like everyone talks about how, oh, don't worry, they're athletes, they're COVID, they'll just be fine. Well, we got an incident here with this
Hmm.
young man, prospect from the Minnesota Wild, gets COVID before the juniors, so he recovers, is no longer positive, so he goes to play in the World Juniors. Everything's fine. He plays over there for Austria. Comes back for Minnesota Wild, like their training camp to get ready for the season, and he doesn't pass his physical, so he can't play for them. Turns out deeper issue than that, and now he's going to see cardiac specialists for his heart. That's really all I know from what I've been listening to and what I read. I don't think there's anything further
Are
than
they
that.
connected though? Do you know? Or is it just one of those cases where like they happened to just find something while they were doing something else?
Oh, it's potential. I guess there's no truth to it, whether we know it's connected for sure. But one thing
Right.
that is
Yeah.
pretty common about they call it the long tail COVID people is that they do have cardiac heart issues, inflamed hearts even,
Okay.
and things like that. Like is somewhat of a common thing for what they call the long tail people, the people that keep feeling symptoms. Who knows? You're right. It could just be something they discovered because the physicals for the Minnesota Wild might be a lot better off than what he would have had to be doing for the Team Austria at the World Juniors. That's a good point.
I do believe that they are one of the better ones. I do believe that they're regarded as one of the better kind of, community and health community kind of
Mhm.
locations in the NHL.
Yeah,
Could be
and
wrong, but I've
now
kind of
that
heard
now
that
that you
that's
mention that, I think I
suggested.
recall a trade a couple of years ago that might have been reversed because they failed the physical for the Wild. Maybe I'm making that. That could be completely made up. I don't know.
Are you talking about Parise for Lad?
Potentially, I don't really remember who was involved. It just rings a bell
Yeah,
that the fact
at
that
the trade deadline, right? There was supposed to be a trade, and then it fell through last minute.
potentially. Again, I don't know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about.
it was Islanders. It was Islanders and Mini. They were going to
Okay.
trade Parise and some sort of deal. There's other pieces, but basically it was Parise for Andrew Ladd. So two kind of higher end contracts,
Yeah,
and Parise wanted to kind of get out of Mini. Um, and then I guess whoever one of the other players in the deal was failed their physical, so it kind of
Hmm. Interesting.
did
Interesting.
that. So yeah.
All right. I think that's enough COVID talk. What do you think?
One last thing I just wanted
Yeah.
to add on that. I think that we touched on this, and I think it's a good call that like the Northern Division has yet to lose a game. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But they're the only division not to lose a game. And the NHL came out today and they said that they're not going to change the playoffs unless they like absolutely have
That's
to.
good.
But basically that seems, and they're talking about today that if the Northern Division doesn't miss a game and they play 7 extra games than another division, it doesn't matter because they're not playing cross division.
That's a good
Everyone's
point.
in the same division playing the same amount of games, right? So if somebody plays 10 less games, well, everyone in your division played 10 less games, so you're all on the same level playing field. It could suck because maybe you didn't get to play one of the weak teams a couple times and get couple
Yeah.
easy wins.
Like you didn't get
That could
Ottawa.
be a shit. Exactly. That could be shitty, but I mean, it is what it is at that point, right?
Yeah.
That's why you spread it out. You don't just go 9 versus one team and then 9 versus another. But I love this little 2-game, 3-game sets that we're seeing.
I do
It
too.
almost wish that they did like a back-to-back or 2 and 3, played one other team, and then came back and did another back-to-back.
There is some cases of that where they
There
play
is.
one, but maybe not necessarily exactly the way you're describing it, where it's back to back one and then back to back. But
Yeah.
but
It's always the third and fourth games of series that are the craziest, I find.
I do. There was a
That's
lot of
why I feel like
complaints here in Vancouver about it, but it was
is
specifically
there?
because Ottawa was in town for 3 games straight, and by the third game, the ratings were down a shit ton because basically Vancouver just rolled Ottawa, right?
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
might as well, yeah.
Makes sense. Maybe that's a reason why Toronto came in right after them. It'd be interesting to see on the schedule if Toronto follows Ottawa into Vancouver every time. Almost be like, well, we're going to take a hit, but then we're going to spike. So overall, we'll remain the same.
Yeah, well,
Interesting.
Vancouver did have a series with the Habs in between,
Oh, okay.
and then
Okay.
so Ottawa I think went to Toronto after, or no,
Does
Ottawa.
Montreal do well out there for ratings?
Yeah, because we got the fans. It's kind of like Toronto coming to town, right?
Hmm.
Oh, you're right though. You're right in the fact that no, it's in Toronto, the Vancouver Toronto series right now, isn't it? Because they're playing right now.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
They're literally
Oh, yeah, I
playing
guess
right
that's
now.
true.
So have you looked at the score?
All right. No, don't tell me. I'm going to start from the beginning once this is done.
Okay, so do you want to talk about some prediction? Like I know you had it
I
on
do
the
know
list.
Matthews has a goal.
Yeah, he does.
I do know. I saw Matthews got a goal, but that's all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there to the predictions and whatnot of this series. I want to save that a little bit. But
You want to say that?
what did you want to say about D'Angelo? What did you want to talk about that?
Well, it's big. It was somewhat of a big story. Earlier in the week, he got in a fight. Didn't you hear?
I did, and just kind of one of those situations for me where it's like I don't know every detail, but
Yeah.
details are coming out, and it seems to be painting a picture that isn't a very good person. I don't really want to bash his character too much or anything,
Hmm.
but he does now have multiple
Multiple
um,
strikes.
Yeah, like in junior, he's got the track record of having to go to programs for sensitivity on race and sensitivity on sexualism and stuff like that.
I think he was the
Um,
first ever player in junior hockey that got a suspension for something he did to his own teammate for
yeah,
whatever 8 games or whatever. Yeah, I just want to touch on it
yeah,
because like he had a great season last year for that team, and now we see him get dropped after this incident with his teammates. No claims made on him. Not too surprised about that, given the climate of the NHL these days.
yeah.
Um, I I don't know. I
It
don't.
disgusted me, to be completely honest, with you, because I was listening to the radio here in Toronto, and they were saying, like both Dreger and somebody else, I can't remember off the top of my head right now. They're both based. They posed the question: do you think he'll be traded? Like, is there a team out there you think that will, besides everything, still take a chance on him? And they both said, yeah. Like without even thinking about it, they said, yeah. And I'm like, really? Like after all of this, you won't. Your teams are still willing to give him a chance. Yet other people who did less stuff have been blackballed and whatnot. I mean, that's not the best term to use, but still, they've been
Yeah.
they've been discasted or whatever to be an out, or they become an outcast to the league. So it's just kind of like, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Like, given we talked about this in a couple pods ago with Evander Kane, right? There are these
Hmm.
players that have the track records of being problems continue to be problems. So
As
like,
Kadri
well, he hasn't been a problem in Colorado yet, has he?
yet,
Yeah.
not that I've heard of, but I mean, who knows,
Maybe
right?
he learned his lesson by getting shipped out of Toronto, where I'm sure he loved playing.
His problems were always in the playoffs. Kadri always did great in the regular season, but then he just went too far at the wrong
Yeah.
time in the playoffs. And
Though,
like
that,
the problem with him is that he had 2 strikes, and you can't let a player have 3 strikes because then they're just done, right? They had to
yeah,
move on.
and with him, his problem, like, it's discipline on the ice, whereas D'Angelo, Kane, and those kind of guys are off the ice. Our team's gonna
Yeah,
realize that these cancerous kind of personalities, their talent that they bring, doesn't pay off for the damage that it does for the rest of the culture, the locker room chemistry, and all that. Like, I you said those guys said that they'll get he'll get signed somewhere or traded somewhere, which I guess I have to be inclined to accept because they're the insiders. But to me, I would not be
yeah, they know
shocked.
more than we do.
I would not be shocked if finally the NHL's just like whatever, like especially the way they treated the BLM movement at the beginning of the playoffs and all that stuff, and like the social change that's we're seeing in sports. This he picked the wrong
Yeah,
time to really mess up. Like the spotlight's on that kind of
he
stuff.
did, and like you kind of reminded me of another topic I was thinking about, and I had asked you prior to about if you knew who Ted Nolan was.
Yep.
And he even said, I haven't watched his special quite yet because I haven't had the time to sit down and
Yeah, I
really
haven't
take it
either
in
yet.
for what it is. But I'm going to as soon as I can. But basically, he said in a bit himself that like it's a boys club that they grew up together. It's a bunch of guys who grew up together. They watched their families grow together. They're all buddy buddy. But like if you're an outsider, you're just an outsider.
Mhm.
So like he said, he was asked, "Do you think you would be coaching today if you were a white man?" And he quite bluntly said, "Yes, I do." So it's just kind of like you see a guy like that who clearly showed he was a great coach and then just never was hired again. And then they come out with these Black Lives Matter movements, or at least they claim that they support it. But then you see stuff like that, and it's just
Mhm.
kind of like it really kind of puts a damper on their reputation as being somebody who's actually trying to be a leader, and it puts it into perspective. Leagues like the NBA and stuff, obviously, who are just clearly doing a better job.
I think
I mean, yeah.
it's time for a commissioner change, is it not? This guy's been in charge for far too long.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
He's
Um,
he's too much in the
because
pockets of the owners.
yep, exactly, the owners won't let him go, and unfortunately, until he can't capably do it, I don't think he's going to leave.
I'm with you
One of
there.
those things, like I feel like a commissioner in a sport should have a 10-year capacity where like after 10 years, if there's somebody else who applies for it, they can get it. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things that you can't just kind of
Yeah.
be there.
I don't remember. Like Gary Bettman's been in charge ever since I can remember. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know the commission. I
we're
don't.
too young to remember.
Yeah, I couldn't even name the commission before him.
I don't remember.
Which is
I should remember, but I don't remember.
exactly. He's not. That's just how much he's been a staple. Which I don't know. It's time for
Yeah.
change. You got to change some of the top, right?
I think so. I think potentially that's what we got to look at, but we'll see.
That will always be seen. Yep. All right.
What do you think about all these overtime games? You like them, and what do you think of the capability or possibility of changing the overtime to just a 10-minute overtime, and instead of having a bunch of shootouts, like
3-on-3.
Let it be determined that way.
I could see that. Shootouts, I don't like. I understand their purpose to close the game out. 10-minute overtime and then be over. Yeah. 3-on-3, like I'm not as big a fan of 3-on-3 as the average person, personally.
Yeah.
It's
the objective is to end the game, right?
Exactly.
It is a little gimmicky, but it's to end the game.
It makes sense.
It's like it would be like baseball having overtime innings where you put a runner on second base to start the inning. Like, they've talked about that too, not to jump sports, but just like
they
ways
did do
to.
That's why it's funny.
Creative,
that's why I was laughing, is because they actually did do that.
Okay.
They did that last season.
Oh, they did actually do it?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go, right?
That's why I was laughing, because it was such a bad, but yeah, I agree. Like, you need the games to end.
Yeah.
You also got to get rid of, while we're on this topic, you have to get rid of these 3-point games, in the fact that there's no reward for ending before regulation. 3-point games are fine. You got to make the regulation win 3 points. I think. I think you're gonna notice it more than ever.
For change. You mentioned time for change. Do you think that this has given the NHL the opportunity to, because there's been talk about changing the awards and potentially changing games to being 3-point games if you win in regulation, and how they don't match the records of before and stuff like that. Well, as far as I'm concerned, COVID's kind of thrown everything out the door anyways.
It's a new world.
So it is. So if there's stuff you want to change that just hasn't changed because of it, now's the time to do it. So I feel that the NHL should do that. Do the 3-point games. You'll see teams pull goalies 5-on-5. Which is crazy, but some teams might need those points late in the season. And then you're gonna see crazy stuff, which is what we want.
This season, you're gonna see more than ever how bad those 3-point games are, because of the way the race is, and every night someone in your division's getting points, no matter what. Normally before, you'd have a chance to everyone ahead of you loses. That's not happening. If you're losing and then the 2 teams right ahead of you are in a 3-point match back to back both times, they're getting 6 points and you lose both, combined, it's going to be more noticeable than ever. And I think hopefully it brings some sort of magnifying glass to why this is a problem that we keep bringing up over and over and over. But yeah, as for the shootout, the reason I hate the overtimes personally, because sports betting wise, I've been getting smashed in the overtimes. I started the season 3 wins and 16 losses when a game went to overtime. So I was
But that's the thing too, is if it's a 3-point game, if you can win in regulation, there will be more times during the game where okay, we have a power play.
Let's go for it.
Because maybe we don't have. Maybe I'll just use the Islanders, let's say, because the Islanders are a good defensive kind of 2-way team, or maybe a Columbus or something. It's not, Columbus isn't a good example because they just got Line A, but maybe a team that doesn't have stars that can kind of compete 3-on-3 against a team that maybe does have stars. That's where I could see
you're gonna have some crazy analytical team that's gonna realize that if you play a 6-on-4 power play, that you got a 0.1 more average expected goals or something. So let's always do it, no matter what the score, no matter what.
Or what about this? What about, second period, you're down by a goal and their best penalty killer is the one in the box? Maybe. Because now you're trusting that, they can shoot it down the ice. That just means you got to be on top of them, and you got to change your game so that you don't leave them enough room to look at their their line and make the shot means you got to play man to man and be right on top of the guy. So at worst, they got to just flick it down, and if it goes in, it goes in. But
or
chances
you
are, if
have
you're
your
just grabbing the puck and flicking it,
you
it's
have
not
that
going
sixth
in.
guy sitting right at center ice. He can feed it back up a lot faster than having to skate all the way back. Like,
Yep.
all these.
Actually, that could be a thing too. That like somebody plays high at the top of the blue line, and if you lose possession, instead of trying to save the blue line, you just turn around and skate 4 strides back hard to almost play as like a middle relief or something like that. You know, rover. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Oh man, now we're just getting crazy though.
But they're all possible things, and now is the time I think that the NHL has to strongly consider that. And I mean, if they change the names of the awards and they changed all this thing, they could say, you know, it's a new world. Everything changed anyways. All the records in those 2 seasons are asterisked anyways. Let's just do the changes and make everyone happy and change everything.
To quote the rest of the world, the great reset, so they can just reset all this crap too, right?
And be exactly what you want to be, right? And I do want to go back quickly that we were talking about. I had a take earlier in the series of videos that I'm definitely going to be wrong on. And I said that I thought Ottawa was going to be a respectable team. I do think that they're still a solid team, but it's just I don't see how they're going to get points like ever against any of the other teams in the Northern Division.
Too good for other than
it's too good. Like they're gonna, like you said, if you lose 2 or 3 in a row, all of a sudden there's a 6-point spread in a week. Like 2 or 3 bad weeks by them could be like a 20-point spread. Like they could legitimately end the season with like 14 points. Like,
I think I talked about this too when we talked about it, is that it will pay its dividends though, because every night they are playing such a superior team to them that they're going to be getting that little bit of an edge that the other bottom teams aren't getting, possibly. Or they might just get demeaned.
But they're also hiding their kids. They're trying to protect their kids in this weird season with the AHL not starting yet. Actually, the AHL, I believe, in the States is just about to start, but the Northern AHL division is delayed. So there's no play for any of the Northern teams to have their prospects or, you know, taxi squad guys play. So they're just practicing. So, like, the Ottawa Senators basically are using their bottom of their lineup players because they don't want to have these kids be exposed to this every night. So, like, they're doing a good job. It just kind of sucks going through this season. But, yeah, I think that it will definitely be worth it in the long run for them.
Yeah.
100%.
For sure. All right.
But, yeah, I mean, the one thing I'm looking forward to doing in the series up later, we're going to have to do our Olympic teams.
Yeah.
And eventually do our expansion projections.
Some fantasy,
pick the rosters and talk about the players, and then see who could potentially be taking the surprises maybe, or the guys that Seattle could potentially look to build on as foundation guys, and whether we think Seattle is going to be, you know,
I guess Seattle's
how they're going to do compared to Vegas.
How will they do? Seattle's going to be coming in this year, technically, right?
They do expansion, so it's going to be a crazy conclusion to the season, because the week after the cup is awarded, there's going to be I believe it's expansion and then entry draft. Maybe entry draft and expansion. Actually, now that I say that, they're talking about potentially doing something different with the draft also, because all these kids haven't played this year.
Yeah.
So, like, or a lot of them haven't. So, like, they're actually talking about doing a mini tournament where they just have all the top prospects from the world come and almost play like a World Juniors type tournament almost. And then it gives scouts like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 games, whatever it is, to kind of see them, how they've progressed and whatever, to give them just a little bit of information. But there's also talk that there's also talk that they could even not do a draft this year and have a double draft the following year. Once the kids get back into their leagues for another year and scouts and whatever get to see them playing again. So that way teams don't just have to, you know, I saw them play 7 games, let's just make a decision. Well, now 2 years later,
that's what they would do.
Probably, right? So we'll see, but it'll be something big. And again, if you're doing that kind of change with the draft and everything, why not start looking at other stuff? Because that's a big change. But first, so see.
We will. Do you want
to the 3 stars?
Do you want to do the 3 stars? Or you didn't want to touch on this goalie thing still?
No, we can save that to another time.
Okay, for sure. We're definitely.
You know me, I'm obsessed with goalies, and I'm always thinking about it.
You're always thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to
Maybe
say, like,
later.
we're likely with the way the off season's setting up to be this podcast is going to be ripping for a year straight without a
Yeah,
break.
basically.
So that'll be
Yeah,
good. We'll be episode 100 before you
that'd
know
be
it.
good.
All
Oh,
right,
absolutely. 200, you mean?
exactly. So that brings us to our favorite segment, the 3 stars of the week.
3 stars.
Woo!
Which is
So
funny because we were talking a little bit earlier, and I didn't know who your 3 stars were, but I had gone into add mine to the spreadsheet that we keep track of them with,
yeah,
and I was like, oh wow, you have the same ones. So let's get you to lead off.
yeah, I'll
What
lead it off
who's
with
your
my
first star
three
of the week?
stars and just put as a note like this. I'm gotta grab my stat sheet here. This is just like the 3 stars for like since our last podcast, so it's really like the last 7 days who we think has basically been the 3 stars, right?
Yeah,
So for me,
exactly.
I got number 3. I got my first goalie award of the season. I'm giving it to Drew Bauer. 3 games played, .67 goals against average, .971 save percentage, and a shutout.
And
McKinnon goes down this week, and he held the fort down for the 1 game without him. 1 goal. So, like, to me, he's been performing very well for this team. And I know there's some question marks from this podcast specifically, too, that could the goalie step up? So, we'll see if it can continue, but definitely this past week, he was the top goalie in my eyes, and I wanted to give him some props. You want me?
right on.
Yeah. So for my star
You going
number,
through your three?
I'll just go through with it. My star number 2, David Pastrnak, and I think, like you said, we both agree on this guy. He's been a monster. Came back off the injury reserves. 3 games played. He's got 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points, 1 game winner. One put it to overtime yesterday. Like the guy has been a monster since he's come back. He didn't get what everyone got to warm up to this point, and he's just been putting them in the net. So I had to give him
He's
props.
clearly the straw. He's clearly the straw that makes that drink work. Like he's clearly the heartbeat of that team. Like they didn't play the same. I watched a couple of their games. They played good. They played solid, but like they didn't play the same when he's not in the lineup. He is definitely their all nice leader for sure.
I definitely did not give him the respect this guy deserves after watching him 3 games. Maybe I'm watching him a little bit more because I own him in a fantasy team, but I didn't notice him the way I should the past couple of years, and I know he's been putting up the points for 2 seasons, 3 seasons now, so I'll be watching him very closely. And then my number 1, giving it to a double whammy, or no, I'm giving it to one guy. We talked about it, right? I'm giving it to
Yes.
Connor McDavid, who just destroyed my fantasy team, but also destroyed the NHL Ottawa Senators. 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points, 2 game-winning goals, mind you. They're not really that much. One of them was like a 5th goal of those things. 7 power play points. I don't know. What else can I say other than some of these goals that he scored were complete crazy highlight reels?
Yeah. He is the best player in the league. No question in my mind.
No question, yeah. Just to follow up, because I know we've talked on the pod before that you were worried about Edmonton. After watching them this past week, still worried, feeling a little more confident that they can rely on these stars, or still a little concerned?
I don't like their goaltenders because Koskinen just played what 12 straight games or 11 straight games or something like
Before
that, and like
Skinner went in,
he
yeah.
held the fort down good enough. Yeah, like he was fine enough. But like he isn't the guy that's gonna steal a game when you need it, or definitely keep you in a game when you need him to keep you in the game. Um, Mike Smith is pretty much at the end of the road, deserves all the respect in the world, but like I don't know if you can count on him to be healthy enough this year. And I think it might be the end of the road for him. And even then, even if he is healthy, I personally would consider him the third goalie and
Mm-hmm.
be like, yeah, you're going to be on the bench every night. You're the second goalie, but like on paper, you're the third goalie kind of thing. So that way, if Koskinen goes down or if they need another guy, the other guy comes into play. One of the names I heard was Darcy Kemper, and like that would be a perfect situation. But then I think Edmonton would have to send one of their goalies back.
Yeah.
So that could be a plus. But if it's Smith that goes back, that's great because a Kemper and Koskinen tandem, I'm not worried about that anymore. I think that
Yeah,
combined
agreed.
they'll figure a way to get it done. But temperature levels cooled, to answer your question, but I'm still not sold yet.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the depth of the teams that I see in Winnipeg and Toronto and Montreal, where they can run 3 or 4 lines. And in the playoffs,
Yeah.
McDavid might have a shift here and there, or he might have a period here and there. But like, if these other teams stack a line to shut them down, or stack 2 lines to shut them down, and then they clearly have the advantage in line 3 and 4, I don't think that's a good recipe for success for Edmonton. So I still think they got work to do.
For sure, for sure. All right, let's hear your 3 stars. Let's go.
Third star is Thatcher Demko. He let only in 3 goals in on over 100 shots this week in 3 starts.
Okay. Yeah.
We're against Ottawa, so I mean that's a little bit of an asterisk. But they don't ask how they ask how many. So
yeah. And he played that first game against Ottawa. They had 24 shots the first period. Like I think if he falls apart that first period, that those 3 games are completely different.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And I kind of wanted to put him in here because I know you watch a bit more Vancouver than I do, or you have at least a bit more, temperature gauge on it. And I wanted to kind of see what you had to add on him. I just by the stats alone, I felt like he's
their starter.
Their star. So
he's their starter.
He is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I figured as much. Yeah. So like that's good for them, right? So
yeah, Holtby, they put him back to the pipe last game, and he no. The last game against Montreal where they let in 7 or something. Then they went back to Demko the next game after, and now they're playing Demko again tonight. So Demko's getting the majority of the starts now, and Holtby's playing the back-to-backs.
Yeah, okay. And that makes sense because, like, my take on new goalies that aren't elite on new teams. Excuse me, like Markstrom's doing fine, but I expected Holtby not to do that great. Especially on a 2-year contract with the expansion looming, whatever. I honestly, genuinely feel like Holtby just wanted to play in Vancouver, and he knew that this was his chance to kind of just go there, even if it was just for a year. Yeah, so, and I think he'll end up in Seattle too. I think he's fodder for expansion, and I think he'll be Seattle's starting goalie, which I don't think he's opposed to. So, yeah, I think it's smart to go with Demko. But second star of the week, Victor Hedman.
Okay.
Big monster. I was watching him play the other night, and he just without I almost said Pasternak, without Kucherov up front, he has stepped up. I think he's playing like 26, 27 minutes a night, and I think he's in on like 20% of their offense or something like that. So he's the one that's generating scoring chances in the plays, and he has, I think, 4 goals this week. Jumping up. I think one of them was a game winner. One of them was a game tire late on the power play. So yeah, he's been a bit of a monster, and I'm actually going to say it now because Tampa traded away Coburn, and they have a couple younger kids on defense. They're definitely going to lean a little bit more on Hedman. So as long as Hedman doesn't get hurt, I think he's going to have the spotlight. I think he's going to have the aura, whatever you want to call about the recognition about him. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say it right now. He's going to win the Norris Trophy.
Okay. This year. I like that call.
Yep. My first star is Connor McDrysaddle. Leon Draisaitl. Yeah. We both were on the same wavelength, but Leon Draisaitl, just because he's my boy. We were talking about it before, and we both kind of said like he deserves the respect because both of us included, and a lot of other people felt he was just kind of riding shotgun the Robin to Batman for McDavid. But that doesn't seem to be the case. He's kind of driving his own line, which is making Edmonton that much more dangerous. And when you look at the points between McDavid and Draisaitl, and only half of them, I think it was approximately half of them, I think it was like 58% of the points came while playing together. Yeah. So almost half of the points came when not playing together, in other words. So that suggests that he's that much more of a player. And then obviously that 6-assist game he had the other night was just ridiculous. So first start of the week for me.
50 goal scorer now. He's a assist playmaker goal scorer machine.
That's what you do when you're the best player on the line, right? You don't choose, I'm going to score 3 goals tonight. You don't choose, I'm going to score 6 assists tonight. You just go out there and you play right, and whatever happens, happens, right?
Yep.
And that's why he's my boy. I think he plays the game right. I think a lot of people should watch him play and use him as a leader. And I think that him coming from Germany and a lot of kids being able to see him as kind of their icon, coming from their same country, I think that's going to go a long way for their country
Yep.
in terms of supplying product as for players for the NHL. I think that's going to do wonders. Being able to watch a guy like that play and lead and run himself as he does. So
Totally. Totally.
he deserves all the respect in the world, and I love, and being in Toronto, I love watching these games because I usually get to see them a couple days a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that nice, but I get to see them all the time, and I'm really appreciating it. Even though McDavid made the Leafs look like a fool the other day, so
Yeah, he did.
either way, it's good. It's good hockey. I love good hockey. I love
Yeah.
good plays. So yeah, it's against my team or kind of my team. Well, they're my team, but I like hockey as a whole thing. But yeah.
Just like to apologize for my dog being disgusting in the background. So
Always has to say something.
always has to let the belches go. Just right around this time he wakes up. So. All right, that wraps up our 3 stars of the week. I think what else is there really to talk about? It's Thursday, lots of hockey out there, so I'm sure you want to get back to it. Leafs Canucks.
Yep, I'm gonna go start the games fresh and see what happens. But I guess the one thing I guess I should say about the goalie trades is that I'm gonna make a prediction by the next time we talk. Darcy Kemper will be on a different hockey team.
Bye next time.
Our next NHL podcast. So by a week from now, I think Kemper will be on a different team.
All right, and I'm going to enjoy this weekend because my Golden Knights are finally going to be back in action after being out
Finally.
for so long. Don't know the standings, but they might even be top of the division. So no, they're not.
Or middle-ish, but that's just because of points.
Exactly.
Games
So I'm
played.
hoping
Yeah.
this doesn't set them back because they were clicking very well. But yeah, until next time.
Of course.
Peace, man.
Take care.